The sun was barely rising over the Pacific Ocean when Lieutenant Maya Reeves stepped onto the grounds of Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. The air smelled like salt and sweat. The famous Navy SEAL training compound stretched before her, obstacle courses, cold ocean waves, and rows of instructors who had broken thousands of men before breakfast. But Maya wasn't a man, and that was exactly what everyone noticed first. She stood 5'4", 125 pounds soaking wet. Her frame was lean, her muscles compact and tight from years of distance running and rock climbing. She didn't look like the hulking warriors you'd see on recruitment posters. She didn't sound like them either. Her voice was calm, soft even, but her eyes burned with something different. Determination. Maya had wanted this her entire life. Growing up in a small town in Montana, she'd watched her father serve as a Marine. She'd heard the stories, seen the medals, felt the pride. But she also heard what people said when she told them her dream. SEALs? You? Honey, that's not for girls. You're too small, too weak, it'll destroy you. Even her own mother had cried when Maya enlisted, not from pride, but from fear. Fear that her daughter was chasing something impossible, something that would chew her up and spit her out. But Maya didn't care what anyone thought. She'd trained for 3 years. She ran 50 miles a week. She swam in freezing lakes before dawn. She did pull-ups until her hands bled. She studied strategy, navigation, survival. She became faster, tougher, sharper, and now she was here. BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. The most brutal military course in the world. A place where 75% of candidates quit. Where grown men ring the bell and walk away in shame. Where Hell Week alone had destroyed the dreams of thousands. Maya looked at the brass bell mounted near the training compound. 3 rings and you were out. 3 rings and you could stop the pain. She swore she'd never touch it, but not everyone believed she'd make it past day 1. Check out the Girl Scout. The voice came from behind. Her, low, mocking, amused. Maya turned. Standing 10 feet away was a man built like a freight train. 6'2", easily 220 pounds of muscle. His name tape read Carter. His arms were crossed over his chest and a smug grin stretched across his square jaw. Around him, a small group of male candidates chuckled. Derek Carter, former college linebacker, former Army Ranger, the kind of guy who walked into every room like he owned it. He had the look of someone who had never been told no in his life. Never been doubted, never been beaten, and right now he was staring at Maya like she was a punchline. You lost, sweetheart? Carter said, loud enough for others to hear. The yoga studio's a couple miles south. More laughter. Maya didn't respond. She adjusted the straps on her ruck and kept walking. But Carter wasn't done. He jogged up beside her, still grinning. Seriously, what are you, 100 pounds? You know they're gonna make us carry logs, right? Boats? You ever carried a boat on your head, princess? Maya stopped, looked him dead in the eyes. Guess we'll find out, she said quietly. Carter laughed, a loud barking laugh that echoed across the compound. Oh, this is gonna be good, he said, shaking his head. I give you 2 days. Maybe 3 if you're stubborn. But Hell Week. He leaned in closer, his voice dripping with condescension. You won't last an hour. Maya's jaw tightened. But she didn't bite. Didn't yell. Didn't defend herself. She just turned and walked toward the lineup. Behind her, she heard Carter say to his buddies, $20 says she's gone by Wednesday. Training started immediately. The instructors didn't care who you were. Man, woman, ranger, marine, it didn't matter. Everyone was prey. Everyone was a target. And everyone would suffer equally. The first day was designed to weed out the weak. 4-mile timed runs in boots. Ocean swims in 50-degree water. Log drills where 6-man teams carried telephone poles over their heads for miles. Push-ups, pull-ups, flutter kicks. All while instructors screamed in your face and sand filled every crack of your body. Maya kept up. Barely, but she kept up. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. Her shoulders felt like they were tearing apart. But every time she wanted to slow down, she saw Carter. Saw his smug grin, heard his voice, you won't last an hour, and she pushed harder. But Carter, he made everything look easy. He crushed the runs, flew through the obstacle course, laughed during log drills like it was a game. He was strong, fast, and confident. And worse, he was good. Really good. By the end of day 1, Carter had become the unofficial leader of his boat crew. The instructors noticed him, respected him. He was exactly what a SEAL was supposed to look like. And Maya? She was just trying to survive. That night, as the candidates collapsed into their barracks, Maya lay on her bunk staring at the ceiling. Her entire body ached. Her hands were raw. Her feet were blistered, but she wasn't quitting. Across the room, she heard Carter's voice. "Hey, anyone check if the Girl Scout made it through?" he said, loud enough for her to hear. I'm shocked she didn't cry herself to sleep yet. Laughter. Again, Maya closed her eyes. Let the anger simmer. Let it fuel her. She didn't need their approval. She didn't need their respect. Not yet. The days blurred together. Cold, pain, sand, salt, screaming instructors, endless physical torture. And through it all, Carter kept talking. Every run, every drill, every impossible task, he found a way to make a comment. A joke, a jab. Need a hand, Reeves? You sure you can handle that weight? Don't worry, we'll carry you. He never said it with obvious cruelty. Always with that same grin, that same casual arrogance. Like he was doing her a favor by even acknowledging her, and others started to join in. Not everyone. Some candidates respected her grit, but enough laughed along. Enough doubted her. Even some instructors looked at her like she was a quota, a political statement, a diversity checkbox that wouldn't last. But Maya didn't break. She showed up every morning, ran every mile, lifted every log, swam every freezing ocean mile, and slowly, quietly, she started to improve. Her times got faster. Her grip got stronger. Her mind got sharper, but Carter didn't notice. He was too busy being the golden boy, too busy winning, too busy underestimating the small woman who refused to quit. Then came the announcement. Hell Week starts Sunday at sunset. The word sent a chill through the entire class. Hell Week. 5.5 days of continuous training, 4 hours of sleep total, freezing water, constant pain, mental breakdowns, physical collapse. It was the crucible, the ultimate test. Most candidates who quit bravest do it during Hell Week, and everyone knew it. That evening, Carter sat with his crew, loud and confident as always. "This is it, boys," he said. "This is where we prove we're not like everyone else. We're built different." His eyes drifted toward Maya, who sat alone, taping her feet. "Some people, though," he said with a smirk. "Some people are about to realize they don't belong." One of his buddies laughed. "You still think Reeves makes it past Sunday?" Carter shook his head slowly. "Not a chance." Maya heard every word, and she made herself a promise. She would not quit, no matter what. Hell Week began at sunset on Sunday. The instructors came in fast and loud, explosions, sirens, screaming. They stormed the barracks with hoses, garbage cans, anything that made noise. They dragged candidates out of their bunks and into the California night. Cold water sprayed from every direction. Smoke grenades filled the air. "Get on the beach. Now, move! Move! Move!" The chaos was intentional, designed to shock the body, break the mind, make you panic. Maya's heart pounded as she sprinted barefoot across the sand. The ocean roared in front of her. The wind cut through her soaking clothes. Around her, dozens of candidates stumbled, shouted, collided in the dark. "Get wet and sandy." The command echoed across the beach. Without hesitation, the candidates ran into the freezing Pacific Ocean. The water hit like 1,000 needles. Maya gasped as the cold seized her chest. Waves crashed over her head. Salt burned her eyes. Then they crawled back onto the beach and rolled in the sand. It stuck to everything, covered everything, got into ears, eyes, mouths. Every crack, every wound, and that was just the first 5 minutes. Hell Week wasn't about one hard thing, it was about everything. All at once. For days, you didn't sleep, didn't rest, didn't get warm, didn't get dry. You ran, you swam, you carried boats, you carried logs, you did push-ups in the surf. You held planks until your body shook. You paddled rafts for hours. You crawled through mud under barbed wire while instructors screamed that you weren't good enough. And the cold. God, the cold never stopped. Hypothermia was the invisible enemy. It crept into your bones, made your fingers numb, made your brain slow, made you forget why you were even there. That's when people quit. Not because of the pain, not because of the exhaustion, but because their mind told them it wasn't worth it. Maya had never been so cold in her life. Her teeth chattered nonstop. Her lips turned blue. Her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the paddle during boat drills. But she didn't quit. She kept moving, kept breathing, kept putting one foot in front of the other. Her boat crew struggled. They weren't the fastest, weren't the strongest, but they stayed together, communicated, pushed through. Maya's small frame actually helped in some ways. She was light, agile. She could slip under obstacles others had to climb over. She didn't tire as quickly on long runs. But the boat drills, those were hell. 6 people carrying a massive inflatable raft over their heads for miles. The weight crushed down on her shoulders. Her neck screamed. Her spine felt like it would snap, but she never dropped it. Not once. Carter, on the other hand, was thriving. At least, at first, his boat crew was the strongest. The loudest. They crushed every timed event. Carter paddled like a machine, ran like a beast. His voice boomed across the beach, rallying his crew. The instructors noticed. "Carter, that's how it's done. Good work, Carter." He soaked it in, grinned through the pain. This was his moment, his destiny. And whenever his boat crew passed Maya's, he made sure to comment. "Still here, Reeves?"
"I'm impressed,"
he shouted over the wind. "Thought you'd be gone by now." Maya didn't answer, just paddled harder. Day 2 of Hell Week. The sun rose over the ocean, but it brought no warmth. Just more pain. The candidates had been awake for over 30 hours. Their bodies were breaking down. Muscles cramped. Joints swelled. Minds started to fog. People began to quit. One by one, candidates stumbled over to the brass bell, rang it 3 times. Walked away, some cried. Some looked relieved. Some looked destroyed. The instructors didn't stop them, didn't beg them to stay. They just moved on. Maya's vision blurred as she ran another 4-mile loop. Her legs felt like concrete. Her lungs burned with every breath. Her wet clothes chafed, her skin raw. But Carter's voice echoed in her. "Head, you won't last an hour," she kept running that night, if you could call it. Night, they did log drills in the surf zone. 6 people per log. Massive waterlogged telephone poles. Lift them overhead, hold them. Walk with them into the ocean. Submerge. Stand. Repeat. For hours. The cold water made everything worse. Maya's shoulders screamed. Her grip kept slipping. Her crew struggled to keep the log steady. "Reeves, you dropping that log." An instructor's face was inches from hers. "No, instructor," she shouted. "Then lift it." She did. Barely. Across the surf zone, Carter's crew moved in sync. Strong. Steady. He laughed. Actually laughed. As they hoisted their log. "Is this all you got?" He yelled at the instructors. They didn't answer. Just watched. Day 3. 48 hours without real sleep. The hallucinations started for some candidates. They saw things that weren't there. Heard voices. Stumbled like zombies. Maya's world narrowed to simple commands. Run. Swim. Lift. Paddle. Breathe. Nothing else mattered. Her body moved on autopilot. Pain became normal. Cold became constant. Exhaustion became a state of being. But she didn't quit. Carter, though, something was changing. It was subtle at first. His grin faded a little. His voice got quieter. His movement slowed. During a boat carry, he snapped at one of his crew members. "Pick up your side. You're killing us." The guy stumbled. "I'm trying, man. Try harder." The instructors noticed. One of them jogged alongside Carter. "You good, Carter?" "Yes, instructor." "You look tired." "I'm fine, instructor." But he wasn't. The cracks were starting to show. That afternoon, the class did surf torture, the worst evolution of Hell Week. Candidates locked arms and sat in the freezing surf. Waves crashed over them. They weren't allowed to move, weren't allowed to break the line, just sit and freeze. 5 minutes felt like an hour. 10 minutes felt like death. Maya's entire body went numb. She couldn't feel her legs, couldn't feel her arms. Her core temperature dropped. Her mind screamed at her to get out, to run, to get warm. But she stayed. Right next to her was a guy from another boat crew. His eyes were glazed over. His lips were gray. I can't do this," he whispered. "Yes, you can," Maya said through chattering teeth. "Stay with me. Just a little longer." He shook his head. Tears mixed with salt water. "I'm done." He stood, walked out of the surf. Straight to the bell. Rang it 3 times. Gone. Maya watched him go. Felt the temptation. Felt how easy it would be to follow. But she didn't. Carter was 10 feet away in the surf. His jaw was clenched. His fists were balled up. His whole body shook, not from the cold, but from something else. Rage, frustration. This wasn't supposed to be hard for him. He was Derek Carter. The golden boy. The ranger. The athlete. He was supposed to dominate this. But Hell Week didn't care about your resume. It only cared if you could take 1 more second of suffering. And for the first time in his life, Carter wasn't sure he could. Day 4. The class was half the size it had been. Dozens had quit. Dozens more were injured, pulled by medical staff. The ones who remained looked like ghosts. Hollow eyes, pale skin, bodies held together by sheer willpower. Maya was still there, bleeding, shaking, barely standing, but still there. Carter was still there too. But the arrogance was gone. The grin was gone. He moved like a man dragging a weight he couldn't see. During a paddle evolution, his boat fell behind. The instructor swarmed. "Carter! What's wrong with you?" "Nothing, instructor." "Then why are you last?" "No excuse, instructor." "You giving up on me?" Carter's face twisted. "No, instructor." But his voice cracked, just a little. That night, they did another round of log PT on the beach. Lift, hold, squat, press. Over and over, Maya's crew barely held it together. But they communicated, adjusted, helped each other. Carter's crew was falling apart. One guy dropped his side of the log. Carter exploded. "What are you doing?" "I can't feel my hands." "I don't care." "Pick it up." An instructor stepped in. "Carter, get your crew under control." Carter's chest heaved. His eyes were wild. He looked around at his crew, exhausted, broken, barely standing. And for the first time, he looked scared. Maya saw the fear creeping into his eyes. Same fear she'd felt 100 times already, but she'd learned to push through it. Carter hadn't. Day 5, the final stretch. Only hours remained until Hell Week ended, but those hours felt impossible. The class paddled their rafts miles down the coast. The ocean was rough. Waves crashed over the bows. Instructors shouted commands. Maya's arms felt like rubber. She could barely lift the paddle. But she kept rhythm, kept pace. 2 boats ahead, Carter's crew struggled. He was yelling at them, paddling furiously, trying to force his body to obey, but his body was done. Halfway through the paddle, Carter stopped. Just stopped. His paddle rested across his lap. His head dropped. His shoulders sagged. "Carter, what are you doing?" An instructor screamed from a safety boat. Carter didn't answer. His crew looked at him in disbelief. "Dude, come on," one of them said. "We're almost done." Carter's voice was barely a whisper. "I can't. I can't." The words hung in the air like a confession. Carter's crew stared at him. The instructors stared at him. Even the ocean seemed to go quiet for just a moment. "Carter," the instructor barked from the safety boat. "Pick up that paddle." But Carter's hands didn't move. His eyes were empty, defeated. The fire that had burned so bright just days ago was gone, snuffed out by cold, exhaustion, and something deeper. He had hit the wall. Not the physical wall. Every candidate hit that. This was different. This was the mental wall. The place where your brain tells you that no amount of pride is worth another second of suffering. The place where people quit. "Carter, man, come on," one of his crew members pleaded. "We're so close. Just a little more." Carter shook his head slowly. His voice was hollow. "I'm done." The safety boat pulled alongside. An instructor reached out. "You want to ring the bell, Carter?" Silence, then a small nod. "Say it out loud." Carter's jaw trembled. His eyes glistened. For the first time since Hell Week started, he looked small. I want to ring the bell." The instructor's face showed no emotion. "Understood. Get in the boat." Carter climbed out of the raft. His crew watched in stunned silence. The man who had led them, who had mocked others, who had seemed invincible, was quitting. Just like that. As the safety boat motored toward shore, Carter sat with his head in his hands. He didn't look back. Maya's boat paddled past the scene moments later. She saw Carter in the safety boat. Saw the defeat in his posture. saw the instructors shaking their heads. Part of her felt vindicated. The man who had laughed at her, who had said she wouldn't last an hour, who had made every day harder with his comments and smirks. He was done, and she was still here. But another part of her, a deeper part, felt something else. Sadness. Not for Carter specifically, but for what he represented. The weight of ego, the danger of underestimating the fight, the cost of arrogance. Maya knew that Hell Week didn't care how strong you looked. It cared how strong your mind was, and hers had been forged in doubt. In mockery. In a lifetime of being underestimated, she had nothing to prove to anyone but herself. Carter had been trying to prove something to everyone, and that made all the difference. Keep paddling. Reeves! An instructor's voice snapped her back. She dipped her paddle into the water, pulled, again. Her boat crew was still intact. Barely. They looked like death. But they were moving. Come on, guys, Maya said, her voice raw and raspy. We're not stopping now. One of her crew members, a guy named Lopez, laughed weakly. You're insane, Reeves. Yeah, she said. But I'm still here. They paddled on. Hours later, the class returned to the beach. Carter was gone. So were a dozen others who had quit during the paddle. The remaining candidates collapsed onto the sand. Some threw up. Some cried. Some just lay there staring at the sky. Maya sat with her back against a log. Her whole body trembled. Her skin was raw and bleeding in places. Her feet were destroyed. Her hands were so swollen she could barely make a fist. But she was still in it. An instructor walked by, stopped, looked down at her. Reeves. Yes. Instructor, she croaked. He studied her for a long moment. His face was unreadable. Good work. It was the first compliment she'd received all week. She nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. Just nodded, because it wasn't over yet. Day 6, Friday. The final day of Hell Week. The sun rose over the Pacific, and for the first time, it felt like hope. The end was close. So close, but the instructors weren't letting up. One last ocean swim. One last boat carry. One last round of PT in the surf. The candidates moved like zombies. But they moved. Maya's mind was beyond exhausted. She hallucinated twice. Thought she saw her father standing on the beach. Thought she heard her mother's voice calling her name. But she kept moving. Lopez stumbled beside her during a run. She grabbed his arm. Stay with me, she said. I don't know if I can. You can. We're almost there. Don't quit now. He looked at her, this small woman who had every reason to quit and hadn't, and he kept running. That afternoon, the instructors gathered the class on the beach. There were only 32 candidates left. Out of over 100 who started, 68 had quit, most of them during Hell Week. The senior instructor stood in front of the group. His voice was calm, almost gentle. You've been awake for 5.5 days. You've been cold, wet, and sandy for 130 hours. You've carried boats, logs, and each other. You've swum miles in freezing water. You've done more than most people will ever do in their entire lives, he paused. Hell Week ends at sunset. You've got 4 more hours. 4 more hours and you're done. A wave of emotion rolled through the group. Relief, disbelief, exhaustion. Maya felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. 4 more hours. She could do 4 more hours. The final evolutions were brutal but short. A 2-mile run. A swim. One last boat drill. Maya's body was beyond pain. It had shut off pain receptors hours ago. Now it just moved. Mechanical. Automatic. But her mind was sharp. She thought about every person who had doubted her. Every coach who said she wasn't strong enough. Every recruiter who suggested a different path. Every stranger who laughed when she said she wanted to be a SEAL. And she thought about Carter, his smug grin. His condescending voice. You won't last an hour. She had lasted 130. And he hadn't. Sunset. The sky turned orange and pink over the ocean. The wind died down. The beach grew quiet. The 32 remaining candidates stood in formation, shivering, bleeding, broken, but standing. The senior instructor walked down the line. Looked each one of them in the eye. When he got to Maya, He stopped. Lieutenant Reeves. Yes, instructor. He almost smiled. Almost. Welcome to the other side. Then he addressed the group. Hell Week is secured. The words echoed across the beach. It was over. Some candidates collapsed. Some hugged each other. Some fell to their knees and sobbed. Maya just stood there, letting it sink in. She had done it. She had survived Hell Week. That night they were given warm food, dry clothes, a chance to sleep. Maya sat alone in the chow hall staring at a plate of food she was too exhausted to eat. Her hands shook as she lifted a fork. Lopez sat down across from her. You saved me out there, Reeves, he said quietly. I was gonna quit. But you kept me going, she shook her head. You kept yourself going. No, he said firmly. It was you. You're tougher than anyone I've ever met. She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. Another candidate, a guy named Phillips, walked by and stopped. Hey, Reeves, respect. He put a fist to his chest. She returned the gesture. One by one, others came by, offered nods, fist bumps, quiet words of respect. These men who had watched her struggle, who had doubted her, who had seen her suffer, just like they did, now saw her differently, not as a woman trying to be a SEAL, as a SEAL candidate who had earned her place. But one person wasn't. Their Carter. Maya learned later that he'd been processed out immediately after quitting, given his gear back, sent off base, standard procedure. Some people said he'd left without a word. Others said he'd been embarrassed, ashamed. Maya didn't know. Didn't ask. Part of her wondered if he regretted it. If he lay awake at night thinking about those final hours, he didn't finish. Part of her wondered if he ever thought about the woman he'd mocked, the woman who had done what he couldn't. Training continued after Hell Week. Months of it. Dive phase. Land warfare, weapons, tactics. Maya pushed through all of it. Not the fastest. Not the strongest. But steady, consistent, unbreakable. She graduated buds with 23 others from her original class. The graduation ceremony was held on a bright Friday morning. Families filled the stands. Flags waved in the ocean breeze. Maya's father was there, tears streaming down his weathered face, pride shining in his eyes. Her mother was there too, no longer fearful, just amazed. When Maya received her SEAL Trident, the gold pin that marked her as one of the most elite warriors in the world, the crowd erupted in applause. She stood at attention. Didn't smile, didn't celebrate yet, just felt the weight of the trident in her hand. The weight of every doubt she'd overcome, every insult she'd absorbed, every moment she'd wanted to quit but didn't after the ceremony. As families gathered and photos were taken, Maya walked alone down to the beach. She stood at the edge of the water, looked out at the Pacific, the same ocean that had tried to break her, the same ocean she had conquered. She thought about Carter one last time, wondered where he was, what he was doing, if he ever told people he'd tried out for the SEALs, if he ever mentioned the small woman he'd laughed at, the one who finished what he started, the one who proved him wrong, in the most powerful way possible, not with words, but with action. Maya turned away from the ocean and walked back toward her family. She didn't need Carter to know. He'd been wrong. She didn't need his apology. She didn't need anything from him, because she had something far more valuable. She had the trident, she had respect, and she had proven to herself and to the world that size doesn't measure. Strength, heart does. Mid-journey, stable diffusion, or dolly. Rules for the prompts you generate. Do not include any text in the thumbnails. The background is completely clear and sharp, not blurred. Lighting is natural daytime with strong color contrast, under cloudy conditions with dramatic shadows. Ultra-realistic cinematic war scene. Carefully analyze the story suggested by the video title and break it into 10 key cinematic scenes. For each scene, write one separate thumbnail prompt. Each prompt must focus on a strong female character or the dramatic twist of the scene. Be cinematic, ultra-realistic, like a movie poster. Use backgrounds fitting the story. War zone, rescue mission, or suspenseful military action. Have dramatic lighting, high contrast, glowing highlights to make the subject stand out. Convey mood, suspenseful, emotional, motivational. Claude Sonnet 4-5, 22500929 thinking. 32K thought for 8 seconds part 4 3 years later. Maya stood in full tactical gear on the deck of a Navy destroyer, somewhere in the Arabian Sea. The sun blazed overhead. The smell of jet fuel and salt water filled the air. She was no longer Lieutenant Reeves, the candidate who barely survived Hell Week. She was Petty Officer First Class Reeves. A fully operational Navy SEAL. A veteran of 4 combat deployments. A warrior who had seen things most people couldn't imagine, and she had earned every single scar. Her team, SEAL Team 7, had just completed a high-risk hostage rescue mission. 18 hours of planning, 40 minutes of execution, 0 casualties. 3 hostages recovered safely. It was the kind of mission that never made the news. The kind of work SEALs did in silence. Maya's commanding officer approached her on the deck. Reeves. Good work in there. Your breach was textbook. Thank you, Senior Chief. He studied her for a moment. You know, when I first heard they were letting women into the teams, I'll be honest, I had doubts. Maya said nothing. Just waited. But you've proven every doubt wrong, he continued. You're one of the best operators I've served with. Man or woman, doesn't matter. You're a SEAL, period, she nodded. I appreciate that, Senior Chief. He clapped her shoulder and walked off. Maya allowed herself a small smile. 3 years ago, comments like that would have meant everything. Now, they were just confirmation of what she already knew. She belonged here. 2 weeks later, Maya returned stateside to Naval Base, Coronado, for a brief respite before the next rotation. The base felt different now, familiar, almost like home. She walked past the Buddes compound, the same obstacle courses, the same cold ocean, the same bell mounted near the grinder. A new class of candidates was in training. She watched them struggle through log PT, watched instructors scream, watched some faces filled with determination and others filled with doubt. She remembered every second of her own journey, the pain, the cold, the fear and the triumph. As she walked toward the base gym, someone called her name. Reeves? She turned. Standing 20 feet away was a man in civilian clothes, jeans, a jacket, a baseball cap pulled low. It took her a moment to recognize him. Derek Carter. He looked different, older, thinner. The arrogance was gone from his posture. He stood with his hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched. He looked ordinary. Maya's first instinct was to keep walking. She didn't owe him anything. Didn't need to revisit the past, but something made her stop. Maybe curiosity. Maybe closure, Carter, she said evenly. He walked closer, stopped a few feet away. His eyes scanned her uniform, the SEAL trident pinned to her chest, the deployment patches on her shoulder, the rank insignia. His face tightened. I heard you made it, he said quietly. Heard you graduated. Heard you've been deployed. 4 times, Maya said. He nodded slowly, looked down at the ground. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Carter spoke again. His voice was rough, strained. I'm here for a conference. Civilian contractor work. I was walking by and I saw you. Maya waited. Carter shifted his weight. He looked uncomfortable, like he was wrestling with something heavy. I wanted to say. He paused, swallowed hard. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Maya blinked. She hadn't expected that. I was an arrogant jackass, Carter continued, his voice gaining strength. I mocked you, laughed at you, told everyone you wouldn't make it. And I was wrong. About all of it. He looked her in the eye now. You did what I couldn't. You finished. You became a SEAL. And from what I hear, you're damn good at it. Maya's expression didn't change, but inside she felt something shift. Not satisfaction. Not vindication, just peace. Why'd you quit? She asked. Carter exhaled slowly. I thought I was tougher than I was. Thought being strong and fast was enough. But Hell Week. He shook his head. It broke me mentally. I couldn't take another second. And I gave up. He paused. Biggest regret of my life. Maya studied him, saw the pain in his eyes, the weight he'd been carrying. She could have twisted the knife. Could have said something cruel. Could have reminded him of every insult, every laugh, every time he doubted her. But she didn't. Because she wasn't that person. Hell Week breaks a lot of people, she said quietly. Strong people. Good people. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means it wasn't your path. Carter's eyes glistened. He nodded, unable to speak. Maya continued. You were wrong about me, but that doesn't define me. What I did, what I accomplished, that defines me, and it has nothing to do with you." She let that sink in. "I didn't finish Hell Week to prove you wrong, Carter. I finished it to prove myself right." Carter looked at her with something close to awe. "You're a better person than I ever was," he said softly. Maya shrugged. "I'm just someone who didn't quit." She adjusted her bag on her shoulder. "Take care of yourself, Carter." She turned to walk away. "Reeves," he called after her. She stopped, looked back. "Thank you," he said, "for what you said and for showing me what real strength looks like." Maya gave him a small nod. Then she walked away, and she didn't look back. That evening, Maya sat alone on the beach near the base, the same beach where she'd suffered through Hell Week, the same beach where she'd wanted to quit 1,000 times. The sun was setting over the Pacific. The sky turned shades of gold and crimson. She thought about the journey, the pain, the doubt, the voices that told her she wasn't good enough, and she thought about the moment she proved them all wrong, not with words, not with anger, but with perseverance. Her phone buzzed. A text from her father. "Saw your name in the Navy Times. So proud of you, kiddo. Always knew you'd make it," she smiled. Typed back. "Thanks, Dad. Love you." Another text came in. This one from Lopez, her old boat crew partner from Bud S. He'd made it through too. They'd deployed together twice. "Drinks at MSKP's tomorrow night. The crew's getting together. You in?" She replied. "I'm in." She put the phone away and stared out at the ocean. The waves rolled in, steady, relentless, just like they had during Hell Week. But now, they didn't scare her. They reminded her of what she'd overcome. Maya thought about all the young women out there who had dreams people said were impossible. The girls who were told they were too small, too weak, too different. The ones who heard no and you can't and that's not for you. She hoped they heard her story, hoped they knew that the people who mock you, who doubt you, who laugh at your dreams, they don't get to define your limits. Only you do, and if you refuse to quit. If you show up every single day, even when it hurts, even when it's cold, even when every fiber of your being screams to stop, you can do things the world says are impossible. Maya stood up, brushed the sand off her pants. She looked one last time at the ocean, at the place that had tested her, broken her, and rebuilt her into something stronger. Then she turned and walked toward the lights of the base, toward her team, her brothers. Her purpose: she was a Navy SEAL, not because she was the biggest or the strongest, but because when Hell Week asked her to quit, she said no, and that made all the difference. Somewhere across town, Derek Carter sat alone in a hotel room. He stared at an old photo on his phone. A picture from the first day of Buddas. He stood front and center, grinning, confident, surrounded by dozens of other candidates. In the back corner of the photo, barely visible, was a small figure. Maya Reeves. He zoomed in on her face. Even then, her eyes had that fire, that determination. He had mocked it, dismissed it, and she had used it to become everything he'd wanted to be. Carter closed the photo, set the phone down. He would carry the regret for the rest of his life, not just that he quit, but that he had underestimated the strongest person in that entire class. Back on base, Maya walked into the SEAL team room. Her teammates were gearing up for the next mission. Cleaning weapons, checking radios, joking around. One of them saw her and grinned. "Yo, Reeves, you ready to get back to work?" She smiled, always. She grabbed her gear, took her place among her brothers, not as the woman who survived Hell Week, not as the underdog who proved everyone wrong, just as a SEAL, exactly where she belonged,